missing someone.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing yet another spring sewing tutorial because I hate winter and winter fashion. So I'm really excited about this one. So I recently got this blue floral fabric from Joann's and I think it's really pretty and it's just like the perfect spring fabric. So I'm going to make a very spring inspired dress. It's going to be almost apron inspired in the front, but I'm really excited about it and it should be really cute, kind of cottagecore. So all the good vibes. And I have 2 yards of this fabric to start off with. And then I also have this white lining fabric because blue fabric is a little bit see-through and this one is just super cheap to go underneath it. So, and I'm also really excited about the closure I'm going to be doing on this dress because this dress is like a mixture between like an apron and an overall and a dress all in one, which is like all of my favorite things. And it's gonna have like little buttons on the side to get it on and off, and it should be super, super cute. So I say this every time, but I'm just really excited to get started on it. So the pieces you're going to cut out for this dress are pretty simple because we're not doing a really fitted bodice or anything, but there are quite a few of them. So I went ahead and cut them all out, and here are all of their measurements. So the first piece you're going to cut out is the back piece, and you're going to cut one out of your fabric, and then you're going to just use that one to trace it and cut another one out of your lining fabric. And that's how we're going to go about most of our pieces. Next up is the front piece, and these little side funky little pieces are just so we can add in darts a little bit easier later. And again, it's one out of your fabric and one of your lining. Next up are these thin, long pieces. These are for the trim and the waist pieces. And for the trim, you just need to cut a piece long enough to go all around the border of your front and back piece. Next up, these pieces are really little because these are just little placket pieces you're going to need to put in the buttons later. And then after that, you're just going to need a pretty long and pretty thin piece for these straps. This does not have to be exact. I just cut mine out of the scrap fabric I had left over. After that, we're going to need the skirt piece, and this is by far the largest piece we need to cut out. And so you're going to cut 2 out of these out of your fabric. And then you're also going to cut 2 circle skirts out for the lining of the skirt. And I put a little diagram down at the bottom to give you guys a better idea of how to cut the waist out as well. And then lastly, we have the pocket pieces, and you're going to cut 4 of these out of your lining. And I always make my pockets really big because when you sew your own clothes, you make pockets really big. Okay, so the first piece we're going to be working with is of course the bodice front, and it has these little like notches in it right here which look kind of funny, and that is so it is easier for us to add in the darts. So I'm going to kind of put those odd edges together, and then I'm going to pin it and make a dart that is 4 inches long. And now your bodice should be looking a lot more fitted. And I just went ahead and did the exact same darts on the lining piece as well. Next up, I'm going to work on the back piece, and I'm also going to put some darts in the back. These ones are going to be a lot longer and thinner, and they're going to be about 5 inches apart. So this one I'm going to fold in half 6 inches in, and then I'm going to make a pleat that is 7 inches long, and it's going to be pretty small. And again, I'm just going to sew both of these. So I really want to put a little trim around the edges of the bodice, and that's why we cut out these very long, thick pieces, and I need to make them so that they can go around the corners of the shirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold one in half, and to get that nice angle, I'm going to take the edge of the bodice that we want to replicate. I'm going to put the corner of it straight in the center of those long pieces. Now I'm going to trace this angle onto that long strip, and now I'm just going to sew this line in. And now when we take this piece and turn it right side out and fold it in half, we have the perfect edge to go around it. So now I'm going to take our front piece, and I just need to measure out where I need the next corner to go on the other side. And then I can just add in the next piece and do the exact same process. So now that both sides are sewn, I just went ahead and basted around the edge and folded it all nicely. And now we're going to pin this edge onto our front piece. And so I want to cut down the edge a little bit because I made this piece pretty big, so I wasn't sure how big I wanted the edge to be of the trim. So I'm going to mark the center of both the front piece and the trim. And I'm going to pin the centers together. And I put a little notch in the corner so that we would be able to turn it. And I'm just going to pin it until I get to the edge. And then I'm going to turn it and go down the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So now that it is all pinned to the front piece, I'm going to go ahead and baste around it first. So now that we've basted around this piece, I'm going to take the lining piece and I'm going to put it pretty side down, and I'm going to pin it all the way around, and then I'm going to sew this on the other side so that we can follow the basted line that we just sewed. And now when we turn it right side out, we have the trim and it's also fully lined. So now I'm going to do basically the same exact steps on the back piece. Okay, so I finished up the back piece and I put the edge around it as well. And now it is time to work on the waistband. So I'm going to take two of our waistband pieces. So I'm going to center our front piece around one of them. And then I'm going to take the second waistband piece and put it on top so that the front piece is sandwiched between two waist pieces. But actually, before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and put some interfacing on one side of our waistband just to make it a little bit thicker. I think it'll add a little bit more structure when we wear it. And now that we added interfacing to two of our pieces, we're going to make sure to put these ones on the back. So these ones should go underneath the front piece. And now we're just going to sew down this line. And again, it is the same process on the back piece. Next up, we're going to work on the button placket a little bit. So I'm going to take our square pieces and I'm going to fold one of them in half, pretty sides together. And I'm just going to sew it right across the top here and down one of the sides. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other one while I'm at it. And for the next step, we're going to need our skirt pieces. So we're not going to just sew down the side seams like we normally would on a skirt. There's a few things we have to do to this one first. So I'm going to lay out my skirt so we can work on one of the sides. So I'm going to take one of the plackets that we just sewed, and I'm going to put it 5.5 inches from the top, and I'm just going to sew it right on the edge that we just sewed. So when we turn it out, we have the button placket right there already. But we're also going to add in the pockets right now. So I'm going to take one of our pocket pieces, and I'm going to put it 1 inch away from the button placket, and now I'm going to turn this whole piece around and do the same thing on the other side of this one. And now I'm going to go ahead and sew both of these seams. And now I'm going to take our other skirt piece and I'm going to again work from one of the sides. And this time I'm just going to take our little button placket pieces and I'm going to sew them 5.5 inches down. I'm going to take one of our pocket pieces and put it 1 inch down away from the placket and sew both of them. And now I'm going to lay one of the edges out, and now I'm going to take the other skirt piece and put it pretty side to pretty side, making sure to push these button plackets out so we don't sew them by accident. And we're also going to put the pockets out as well. So we're going to lay them on top of each other, and we're going to sew just like 1/2 inch above where we sewed the button plackets. So I'm going to put a pin here, and then when we get to the pocket, we're going to stop about here. And then we're going to pick it up again, starting from about here, and we're going to sew all the way down. And we're going to do that on both sides. And now we just need to finish up the pocket, so I'm going to push these edges away, and I'm just going to sew around the perimeter of the pocket, making sure to leave this section open so we can put our hands through it. And now when we turn our skirt right side out, you have this nice invisible pocket here. And now it's finally time to gather the whole skirt. So I'm just going to put 2 basting stitches around both of the top edges, and when I get to the side with the button placket that we doubled over, I'm going to stop and I'm not going to sew it on that one, but on the other side with just the single layer, I'm going to fold it back and continue basting all across the edge. Also, I like to switch out my bobbin to a different color just so I don't waste my thread and have to redo another one. So I just cut down the waistband a little bit on the front and back pieces because it was looking a little bit thicker than I wanted it to be. And now it is time to start pinning the skirt to the front and back pieces. So the piece with the folded band that we sewed, that is the back section, and then the piece with just the single placket, those are the front sections. So I'm going to work on the back piece first. So these plackets are going to stick out like this. So what we're going to do is right where the placket seam is where we're going to put the edge of the back piece. So I'm going to line it up right at the edge of the back piece, and I'm going to put it pretty side with just the top layer of the waistband. And I'm going to pin this placket in place because we're not going to be gathering this part. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. And now we're going to pull on the basting threads, and we're just going to gather this until it fits into this area that we pinned off. Now I'm just going to make these gathers nice and even, and then I'm going to pin it down. And then before I baste across this edge, I'm going to add the top edge of the lining skirt, and I'm also going to pin it right here and baste it along the edge. And we're going to do essentially the same exact process on the other side of the skirt, but this time on the other side of the skirt, the flap is folded beneath, so there's no extra ledge here. So we're just going to make this edge of the skirt go right against the edge of the bodice. And then I'm actually going to put the lining piece underneath this flap on the back. And again, we're just going to baste along this edge. And now we just have to finish up the waistband so there's no more raw edges. So where the skirt ends on the waistband, I'm going to fold the waistband in half, and I'm going to sew straight down to that point. So when we turn the waistband out, we have this nice finished edge on all the sides. Oh, and I also forgot to do it, but once we are happy with the waist, the way that it's looking, we should just sew again straight down those basting seams because those are not finished seams. So now I just need to finish the raw edge of the waistband. So I'm going to fold this really flat and fold in this little lip here. And then I'm going to pin it like this all along the front and back pieces. And then once it's all pinned, I'm going to turn it to the front, and I'm going to sew very carefully right here. And now we still need to sew the lining skirts together. So because we have this open placket right here, I'm just going to sew them together right underneath it. So starting from about here, and I'm just going to sew straight down on both sides. And now we are finally getting pretty close to being done with this dress. And the next thing I'm going to add on is the straps finally. So I'm just going to take these long thin pieces that we cut, and I'm going to just fold them in half and sew straight along the edge. And now I just turn these straps right side out, and the way I'm going to sew the straps on is I'm just going to take one of the raw edges, fold the little raw edges into it so that we have a little loop here, and then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to pin it to the back side of the top, pin it in place, and then I'm just going to do one continuous straight line all across the top to sew both of the straps in. Next up, I'm going to finish the closure on the skirt. So I'm going to put little buttons down it. So I found these white buttons that I really like, and I'm going to put 4 of them in the button placket. So I'm going to put 2 on the waistband right here, pretty close together, and then I'm also going to just measure out 2 and put them down the rest of the placket. So the side with the little ledge right here is the side that the buttons are going to go on, and then the side that is nice and straight is where the button holes go on. So I'm just going to measure those out and make the button holes. And now to line the buttons up perfectly and get the buttons in the right spot for the buttonholes that we just made, I'm going to take the buttonhole side and lay it on top of the other piece. And then I'm going to take a water-soluble pencil and just mark right down the center of those buttonholes that we just sewed. And those little dots are right where the buttons have to go. And the very last thing to do is to hem it. So I'm doing a pretty thick hem on this one because I think it'll work well with the aesthetic. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew that all the way around. And the dress is finally done! It turned into a little bit more like an overall dress than I was honestly expecting it to, but I really like how it turned out, so can't wait to show you guys what it looks like! So here is the finished dress. It didn't turn out exactly how I had planned because I wasn't planning to have to wear a shirt underneath it, but the tension of the bodice didn't quite sit right to cover everything. So I turned it into more of an overall dress, which I am obviously not mad about. I love overalls and I love this dress. And I was a little unsure about how I would like the length because I don't own any dresses this long, but I actually really love it. It turned super cottagecore and I think it's really, really cute. And I have to say, I think the buttons down the side is definitely my favorite part. I love that detail a lot. I hope you guys liked this tutorial and found it helpful. And if you guys make it for yourself, you can always send me a picture on Instagram. I get super excited when I get to see your guys' stuff. And I post videos every Friday. If you guys want to see more of my content, that would be really cool. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!